First flight of the orbital Discovery, and the shuttle has cleared the tower. Discovery's core computers now have primary control of critical vehicle functions.
Hey everyone. All right. So today we are in for a doozy, and this is the first time I'm actually saying all of this out loud, so bear with me on that. So first off, I'm going to bring Citadel Air up here, and I don't know exactly how to feel at the moment for him comparing me to Jackie Kennedy. That is that's something. Because she is definitely a gem in this world for sure. YouTube, I've also been playing around with the audio coming through, so let's see. Hopefully, this actually sounds even better today. I keep taking your guys' words, I promise, and I'm working on it. yeah, so everybody in the space and on YouTube, I provided the link to the DD that I posted up on the BullHouse subreddit. Yeah, this is going to get pretty interesting. And if you guys do have anything you guys want to add, feel free to come up and talk about it. Or if we need any kind of clarification or anything like that, or if someone has a rebuttal, I welcome it and I will edit it in the post as well, if need be. So, but this is everything I've been finding for, gosh, I think I've been working on this about a month and a half or so. Just trying to get different sources, different information, trying to see relevancies. And I did have a computer crash, so I actually lost a few tabs. And so the religion one that's down in the comments, I actually forgot about that. So I do appreciate that is being put out there. So, all right. Oh, here we go, guys. Let me transfer some stuff around so I can keep chats and everything up. All right. So here we go. All right, so YouTube, you should be able to see it on the screen now. And anybody that's in Spaces, you can either follow along on YouTube, or if you guys want to just follow along by clicking the link up top in the tweet that I did post, feel free to do that as well. Citadel, do you have anything to add before we get started?
Hello, hello. No, I'm just here to take it all in and help moderate the forum. Should anyone, and obviously my valued insight, as you so wisely put it earlier, I'd be happy to add any anecdotes as needed.
Sounds good. I appreciate it. All right, so of course, the intro to who I am, blah, 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 why I'm doing this, not financial advice, just observations. Please do your own DD on this because it is really fascinating to compare Rome and the United States as we sit right now. It's actually very fascinating because the Roman Empire is one of the greatest empires to ever exist. You know, Mayan, Aztec, all of these empires fell for one reason or another. But I wasn't going to dive into the Mayan and the Aztec because we'd be here all night. So, but yeah, I did put a little TLDR up there, but it really doesn't do it any service because I suck at those. So yeah, I'm gonna do it this way. I'm gonna scroll down to the zoo. Actually, I'm gonna pull this link up. I'm sorry, guys. Which one is it? So if I just say these few things, contributing factors to the decline of the Roman Empire. They were the barbarians, inflation, rising taxes, political instability, and poor defense. Sounds kind of familiar, right? So I'm going to start off with that. Keep all those in mind while we go through this. So the first factor called out the barbarians, taking over different parts of the Roman territory. Once they lost control, they found it difficult to gain control back, which eventually led to the division of the Roman Empire, the Eastern and the Western. The continual attacks from the Huns until they finally retreated after Attila died, weakened Rome's defenses, which led to Germans, Slavs, Persians, and a few others to take over Rome from the eastern border. The inflation. Romans were affected by the invasions of the Germans. Trade and agriculture were the most negatively impacted. Merchants were not making as much, and the farmers were experiencing massive shortages. Guys, it's going to start sounding very eerily familiar to what we've been experiencing just in the last 5 years, right? If there isn't as much money going into the system and the farmers aren't able to produce, the supply and demand start to affect the price of goods and services on a drastic scale. To help offset the rising costs, the Roman government began to mint coins. Sadly, these types of financial crises plagued Rome for centuries, even going back as far as 40s BCE. And that would be with Julius Caesar and the taxes on lands and everything like that. And I will show pictures in just a moment. The third point to make on the falling of Rome was the political instability. This is a short section, but it'll come into play with today, sadly. The Roman legions had picked their leaders, and if they were displeased with how they were doing, they would just have them killed. The legions would then select another one that would align more with how they viewed the Rome. Final point was the poor defense. But Kenna, they had one of the greatest militaries, and we know this. The Roman military was fantastic. They were well trained, well equipped, and they could defeat anything, right? Um, but the army was consistently at war, trying to protect their leaders slash the empire. They became weak and unable to keep up with the supplies and massive shortages that were occurring. And the armies also began fighting one another due to political reasons, leaving them open to many invasions they experienced. The Roman Empire was also plagued with high unemployment and poverty-stricken society. They utilized the various sporting events, fights, anything that was in the Colosseums. So that's where we have the gladiators and the chariot racing and all these other things. They used these to make people forget about what was going on in their life, like how poor they were, and they usually had like food, so like bread and water, maybe at these different events, so people could go get away from their own reality of just not having anything and go see people potentially killed, or they actually had like circuses, and it's actually said that many animals became extinct during this time frame because they would just hoard all these animals down below the cathedrals and sorry, not the cathedrals, the Colosseums. I'm sorry, guys. And they, would kill them. They would die. They for sport. It's atrocious what they did with some of these animals. So yeah, first picture we show. These shows were usually free to the public. The emperors believed it was a good way to keep people from ancient Rome happy and content with the way the city was being governed. So this to me is kind of like our trash TV. I'm sure someone saw my tweet today about it. They keep us complacent, right? Netflix, Hulu, all this other stuff that we can just do at home or whatever. And we just kind of become numb to what's going on, right? And so then they provided free bread, free entertainment, combination they believed would help keep many of the unemployed people in Rome happy. The Colosseum was the greatest building in ancient Rome, but much smaller amphitheaters were built in Roman Britain, and gladiatorial fights may have occurred in these. Chariot racing was put on the Circus Maximus, that was equally popular with the people of ancient Rome, and going to a race was seen as a family event. So then we also, I'm not reading this whole big thing, but this goes back to with Julius Caesar, what I was just talking about, in the 40s BCE. They had a law on the books that actually was never kept in check. Like they just kind of let it go by the wayside until Julius Caesar had basically was going, we need to rectify this because this is law and this is pretty much what's screwing us. And so they had to invest in certain portions of their capital into the Italian land in order to lend an interest. But these kind of mishappings with creditors and the banking system back then led to this last paragraph. This touch-off was the worst of the crisis. Debtors tried to sell their lands to raise funds for the repayment, but the flood of the property onto the market depressed prices. A housing boom, or a bubble, right? The housing bubble, land bubble, I guess you can call it. Those who could not make enough from the sale of their lands to repay their loans, as well as those who could not sell at all, turned to money lenders who charged exorbitant rates. These recourse failed in many cases, and a great number of debtors were brought into court. When the judgment came against them, many were ejected from the lands. So this this is kind of one of those first cases of a bubble forming, and so then you had the influx and high interest rates, and it kind of reminded me of the '08 crisis, right? We had an influx of properties. All these properties had crazy interest rates and all this other stuff, and then we all know the history on that. Then my little snarkiness. Seems to me about 2,000 years, we have not been able to figure out how to keep society and nation stable in financial term. If only there were objects that had writing on them to tell us of old society ways, and we could possibly learn from them. Just a little snarky thing. So then we also have this. Again, I'm just going to read the bold. You guys can definitely go through and try to read through it to have a better understanding. But staggering increase in the cost of elections with dubious campaign funding sources. Remember, this is for Rome. Okay, this is the collapse of Rome, what led to it. Politics as the road to personal wealth, continuous war, a national state of security arises, distracting attention from domestic challenges with foreign wars. Foreign powers lavish money, attention on the republic's leaders. Profits made overseas shape the republic's internal policies. Collapse of the middle class, gerrymandering, and loss of the spirit of compromise. If you would have told me that that actually described the U.S. some days, I would have believed you. As Benjamin Franklin observed, we have a republic, but only if we can keep it. And it's definitely true, right? Because that's like the Roman Empire was technically supposed to be a republic. All right, so on to the United States as we sit today. We have various groups committing violent crimes around our country. And so this is where the barbarians in modern day. So this isn't like Till of the Hun and the Germans coming in and whatnot. Like this is today. So you figure like all of the riots going on, all of the just mass chaos we see in our country and around the world, it's happening everywhere, right? But for the sake of this is for the United States. Various groups committing violent crimes around the country. I don't care how you view it, it's happening. You know, Portland is going crazy. I keep seeing news about what's going on over there. And even Seattle had some major trouble. So it's getting a little bit nuts in that sense. The fact remains that cities have been burned and obliterated around the country for various reasons the last couple of years. People have come into the country from various global organizations in an attempt to recruit people to different terrorist groups. These quote-unquote barbarians are trying to cause chaos throughout our nation and the world in an attempt to push their own agenda. This is not being united, but rather further leads to division within our society. Next, we have our taxes. Taxes are forever rising and falling. But even as I write this, New York Times put out an article September 7th saying that they are trying to increase taxes on corporations, large inheritances, and the quote-unquote super wealthy. When it comes to the government increasing the tax base on corporations, do you truly think they're going to take the hit? No, they'll pass it on to the consumers, which leads us to more of an inflation problem. The article with the link, if you guys want to read it, I'm sure everyone's kind of heard about that fight that they're having to increase those taxes. Inflation in America has been a growing problem for decades, but in the recent years, it's becoming more evident that higher than normal inflation rates. With the various situations we have around the world taking hold of our economic standing, we are left with the assumption we are just in the beginning of a downward shift in our economy. With one pipeline shut down and another easily hacked into, the security in which our oil products are being distributed becomes problematic. Pulling out of the Middle East, China finding 2 underground reservoirs of oil, and making deals with OPEC. Why is this important? So OPEC, reason I even put this up here. So the 13 member nations of OPEC, Algeria, Angola, Congo, Guinea, Gabon, Libya, Nigeria, United Arabs are in the OPEC. But we also have, Afghanistan, like the original founding members, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela. So these are big entities in the oil industry, right? And so if China is going through and making backdoor deals with OPEC, it could lead to the petrodollar, which is basically what we have because we're no longer gold backed. We really do follow the oil prices and how that, so oil goes up, our dollar goes up, and blah blah blah. But it could start to lose value. Therefore, our dollar will not be going as far as it once did just 2 years ago. Add the rising cost of gas, making transporting goods around more expensive, to the massive shortages still being felt from COVID, and you now have a setup for inflation to go wacky. Another point of inflation would be the housing and commercial real estate markets. These two markets have been kicked down the road since 2008, and actually it's been longer than that, but that's just the most recent history, right? Where they never fully fixed the problem. Our government did what it does best. They threw money at it, the taxpayer money. They bailed out the banks who took risks their butts couldn't cash. And when the market went bust, and then the market went bust. After getting bailed out because the banking system, financial system can never fail. Thank you, Greenspan. They continue to screw with the market, with the general population suffering immensely. Enough so that people were just getting their way back to normalcy in 2019 when COVID began circulating around in December. What many people don't know is that the writing was on the wall for the economic disaster even back then, but no one was talking about it because COVID was making its rounds through the world. Stimulus package packed full of BS spending were passed through without question by the masses because we need relief from shutdowns. They spent money the U.S. did not have to spend on people not in our country. We are now $27 trillion in debt, and actually, I think I checked today, we're crouching on that 28 trillion now. And they are nowhere near passing a bill to raise or halt our debt ceiling, leaving our Treasury to foot the bill to ensure we don't default on our debts. But they can't keep that up forever. They have maybe a couple weeks to maybe a month at the time of writing this. As a note, the United States has never defaulted on their debts. So that's kind of substantial to consider, is that we've never defaulted. Like and the debts, it's not like, defaulting to China or anything like that. Like, these are debts to like Social Security. These are debts to the veterans getting, their pay, and military getting their pay. Like, it's people in our own country that need to have their income to live that won't be paid. So it's kind of huge. It's really kind of huge that we could be running out of money. So then I did put this from Investopedia. Inflation. Inflation is a measure of the rate of rising prices of goods and services in an economy. If inflation occurs, leading to higher prices for basic necessities such as food, it can have a negative impact on society. So then this one. So we've seen a lot of questions about what if the debt ceiling doesn't get raised, right? I know there's a lot of questions about that, and there's not a lot of people wanting to talk about it because it's unfathomable, right? That our government is just fighting with one another about this one particular situation. So bear with me. I'll read this one through. Once the government hits the debt ceiling and exhausts all available extraordinary measures, it is no longer allowed to issue debt, and soon after will run out of cash on hand. At that point, given annual deficits, incoming receipts will be insufficient to pay millions of daily obligations as they come due. Therefore, the federal government will have to at least temporarily default on many of its obligations, from Social Security payments and salaries for federal civilian employees and the military to veterans benefits and utility bills, amongst others. A default, or even the perceived threat of one, could have serious negative economic implications. An actual default would roil global financial markets and create chaos, since both domestic and international markets depend on the relative economic and political stability of the U.S. debt instruments and the U.S. economy. Interest rates would rise and demand for treasuries would drop as investors stop or scale back investments in the treasury securities, hence why they're probably shorting them. If they are no longer considered a perfectly safe investment, thereby increasing the risk of default. Even the threat of default during a standoff increases borrowing costs. The Government Accountability Office, GAO, estimated that the 2011 debt ceiling standoff raised borrowing costs by a total of $1.3 billion in fiscal year 2011, and the 2013 debt limit impasse led to additional costs over a one-year period of between $38 million and more than $70 million. If interest rates for treasuries increased substantially, interest rates across the economy would follow, affecting car loans, credit cards, home mortgages, business investments, and other costs to borrow and invest. The balance sheets of banks and other institutions with large holdings of treasuries would decline as the value of treasuries dropped, potentially tightening the availability of credit as seen most recently in the Great Recession. So, I mean, we have the threat. We've had the threat since July that this could happen, right? We're in September. So this is already negatively affecting not just our country, but around the world, because people are going to start looking at our economy going, I don't think so. We just won't invest in this. Like, they're too shaky on what's going on, and it's not a safe bet, right? And we've seen them putting, you know, shorting treasury bonds, and they're shorting all kinds of stuff in our economy. So they're seeing it. They're definitely seeing it. And I know Boss Blunts has been posting up some stuff about the consumer price index and the Shiller PE ratio, which I'm really excited that he's been doing that. And I did compare and contrast to when I did my history repeating itself to these two charts or whatever, and they've gone up. They've gone up quite a little bit of a tick, more so than I'd like to see. So, so the consumer price index, we're sitting at 273, and the Shiller PE ratio of 38.7. And if you guys have not seen this before, so Black Tuesday, this right here, this was 1929. The Great Depression right here. This Black Monday, this was 1987, when they enacted the Greenspan put to make sure that our economy did not crash. This one up here, this very top one, this is the tech bubble. And we are sitting right now between the tech bubble and the Great Depression. And so I don't know how much higher this can go before it just kind of wants to go back down. So I am keeping my eye on it. There are a few other different PE ratios to look at, but again, we'll be here all night. And then this one floating around, the inflation chart that's been all around Twitter. This one made me really sad. Because, okay, so here's 2008 down here, right? With 4.3, 4.0, 4.0, and then we get here to these 5 point whatevers. And here we are, we're about a month ahead of 2008. And, you know, kind of. 2008 was just bad, let's just face it. In the sense of like this 4.2 range, we're a month ahead. But that should tell you something. Like, we jumped from 1.4, 1.7. You know, they're like, oh no, this is fine. Everything's fine. April hits 4.2, 5.0, 5.4. And then we do have, there is another link at the very bottom that was given to me, and I totally forgotten about that post actually explaining what we're sitting in. I think it's like actually like a 13%. So it's not looking good, guys. But and this is the other thing. So I do see a lot of people saying like, oh, we're in hyperinflation. No, hyperinflation is that when we hit a 50%. If it hits 50%, that's hyperinflation. And if we start scratching like 30%, then I'll be really, really, really worried. Right now, it's a very high inflation rate. It's just not good. But we won't hit hyper until we hit a 50%. So if anybody sees or figures out we're at 50%, then please let me know, and I will get that out as soon as I can. All right, so this now leads me into the political instability. Now I'm going to do this as PC as possible, because this is a very controversial topic, but we'll muddle through this. Cool. All right, not much to say, but for the last 6 presidents, I will give it to Reagan. Reagan was roughly the last one where everybody could kind of live a normal life, right? That was about the last time, and that's basically when I was born, a couple years before. But yeah, we'll say 6 presidents. And if anybody really sucks with presidents, that's Bush Sr., that's Clinton, Bush Jr., Obama, Trump, and now Biden, who is also the vice president to Obama. Surprisingly, a lot of people don't know that. I don't know how. We won't even discuss the lengths that Congress has been in office. You would think with the similar families / members being a part of the government, you would have some stability, but in fact, it has caused major instability between the federal government and state governments with the various policies they're always trying to add or overthrow from previous administrations. Also, with the political instability, there is a constant divide within our country that can be seen almost daily. One side is always blaming the other for the wrongdoings, which is not the way a united nation should be. They want both sides to keep fighting, to keep communication and understanding from happening. Because God forbid we talk about what we truly want to live comfortably in our own free country. A country divided will fall because we will be hesitant to speak our minds and come together when necessary. If there is anything the quote-unquote meme stock saga has shown the world is that a united population can do extraordinary things. What is even more fascinating, given the meme stock investors, is that they are not governed or live live in the same country. It's a global community made up of people of all walks of life, but they teach, listen, provide memes, and help new investors win and wherever they can. So congratulations, guys. We can be self-governed and not fight each other. Lastly, the similarities is the poor defense. While no, we do not meet this one exactly, given technologies and military advancements, but something that baffles me is the wasteful spending that happens for our military affairs. The fact that just recently we left guns, vehicles, helicopters, ammos, and piles of money in Afghanistan with no prospects of getting those things back is beyond infuriating for more than one reason. We weaken ourselves monetarily as well, giving our enemies access to our equipment to use against us. Below, you'll see 8 screenshots demonstrating the material cost because you can't put a price on the lives of magnificent heroes we've lost in the war. To read this article, I have the link there. So the screenshots. I'll go through some of these, but it's astronomical. It is astronomical. I'm sure everyone's seen the video footage of like the piles of cash that were in, different areas. Yeah, just money hanging out. Like, what the? Let's see. All right. So, sorry, I'll scroll up here. So this is from 03 to 2016. So this doesn't it doesn't really touch the full aspect, but it gives you an idea that 884,311 pieces of equipment were left throughout all the years. Okay, we've spent money on that. Like, it got destroyed, it was, taken or whatever. We spent money on it. Provided an $83 billion worth of training and equipment to the Afghan security forces since 2001. This year alone, the U.S. military aid to Afghanistan was $3 billion. Sorry. Well, we're not going to touch on all of that, but breakdown of estimated cost. Armored personnel carriers, 170,000 each, up to 333,000. Mine resilient vehicles, 412,000 to 767,000. Total cost could be between 382 million to 711 million. Recovery vehicles, 168,000 to 880,000. Humvees, everyone kind of knows that ranges 37 for the ambulance type, 37,000 to 142. Most at about 96,000. These go up to 329,000. The helicopters, which my husband and I know very well how expensive they are because that's what he did. Blackhawks can cost up to 21 million, and we lost quite a few of those over there. Let's see, contracted C208s, 84.6 million or 12.1 million each. 5 million for surveillance planes. And then we have drones, $174 million in drones, weapons. I mean, you name it, right? All of this money, right? And a lot of it got left. So it's that. Why I bring this up is that the taxpayers did pay for it, and it was in some of the bills that we've all been privy to seeing and everything. So it was to help our military over there, yes. But my grievance is the fact that it got left. So yeah, let's see. Al, I will bring you up. I'm almost done, so then I will take your responses too in just a second. All right, so on top of that, the divide they cause between our own society, mentioned above, weakens us against true enemies. One sec, Al, let me finish this real quick. If we as a country cannot stand together on basic ideologies, then God help us when time comes from difficulty, when it becomes extremely difficult. Other similarities between Rome and the United States: middle classes didn't exist. Our middle class today is practically gone. Both did well during foreign war times. Think World War II. 2002 was an okay year, the first full year of the war on terror, but we quickly declined with the over-leveraging of banks that they were doing during the Clinton administration. As you can see, similarities between Rome and the United States are uncanny. We need to look more at their society, and so that we don't become them. Basically, we got to figure out what they did and do the opposite, right? Because we do not want to have this exact same fate. I will try to do part 2, but we'll see. We'll see. This took a lot longer than I anticipated doing all the research. The rise and the fall of the great empire is never an immediate or sudden event, but rather a slow simmer until the boiling point is too much for anyone to stop. Rome, like the United States, had major impacts on the world, so when they fell, the aftershocks were felt for thousands of years after the event. The U.S., being so intertwined with the majority of the world, in one way or another, on top of being the reserve currency, would have a devastating effect if it were to fall. So my big thing with all of this, guys, is that they like this divide and conquer thing, right? We see this all through a lot. Politics, divide and conquer; religion, divide and conquer; stocks. We're seeing it with our stocks, divide and conquer. Like, we can't let that happen, right? We're all humans. We all live on this world, and we just kind of got to stand up and be like, enough's enough. Like, we all suffer. The 99%, I'll say it, the 99%, we all suffer in some degree the same way. Some are a little bit more comfortable than others, yes, but we're all being affected in the same manner because the 1% thinks that they can get away with it. But now we're seeing, like, no, this has happened time and time and time again, where the top percent of whatever population, whether it's Roman Empire or now our era, enough's enough. So, but yes, Al, what's going on?
So, one of the things that rarely gets talked about is the doctrines and the theology followed by the Taliban. And I'm going to tell you something. We don't invade countries just for the sake of invading countries. What we do is we take a look at what's happening over there and see if we can basically take it over. And, other than the warfighting aspect where we fought for our morals, there's some kind of ancillary benefit, whether it be oil, minerals, whatever it may be. Now, we went under the premise and the guise of bin Laden, right? When we found out we couldn't hit bin Laden and we couldn't find him or his associates, we should have exited. They should have turned everything over right then and there, and they should have done something with the Taliban itself. They should have called them back, just like we did with the Nazis. Um, I'm going to teach you guys something really quick. These guys are Sunni Muslims, right? They're Sunni Muslims, which is the same kind of Muslims that are in Saudi Arabia. They're called Wahhabis and Salafists. They're the same type. But what makes Afghan Muslims different fundamentally is they belong to a sect called Deobandi, which is based out of India, right? Their culture at some points supersede the Quran itself, right? So they go by cultural differences rather than Quranic differences. There's no doctrine for that, right? So what you do is how do you organize and defeat that theology, that doctrine of thought within that sect of Islam? It's very simple. It's hearts and minds. It's hearts and minds. It should have never gone to conquest. We should have won them over by bringing their leaders, their Islamic leaders, into highlighted areas, and then coerce them to bringing them down, like toning them down, because this is the only place this kind of Islam exists. It does not exist in Pakistan. It does not exist in India. It was an archaic form of Islam that somehow got trapped in the void that is Afghanistan, and it's been perpetuated for, hundreds of years, maybe even longer. But Deobandi Islam that originated from India was basically banned. People got tired of it. They realized they couldn't do anything with it. So what happened? They got rid of it and they moved on and they evolved and they've done great things. Now our government knows this. That we have an intelligence bureau. That we have, you know, uh, smart people that are into cultural anthropology within the government, they knew all this, but they chose to go to war anyway because we had to inflict fury for the 3,000 Americans. Listen, I'm an American Marine, right? I've been over these shithole countries and I fought alongside them. I fought against them. These people can never be saved. It is a money hole. You just keep pouring money into it and more lives, and there's no tangible or measurable level of success. That's what these wars in the Middle East have been. It's completely unfruitful. I hope the leaders of tomorrow are cognizant of these little things. And if we do go to war back there again, this is a horrible thing to say. I hope we drop atomic weapons because fuck them. They're just not going to learn any other way. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Thank you for your service. I really appreciate it. Like it's very awesome that our veteran community is just huge. It is just amazing. I don't know. I mean, I believe I remember correctly. Like, I think it was Afghanistan, but it might be Iraq. One of them is the land of fallen empires, and it's said to be that because anytime anybody's gone to war in these countries, they have fallen. They've gone bankrupt. They lose everything. So, I mean, I guess we can say that much that we're getting by the skin of our teeth. Citadel, you want to chime in?
Yeah, no, you're apt. You're correct there. Afghanistan is the dubbed the graveyard of empires, or as you phrased it, but it's Afghanistan.
That's what I thought. I was like, it's one of them. I thought it was Afghanistan because I remember, because like it was said whenever we first went over there, like I remember people saying, well, we might be in trouble because everyone that's gone in there to go fight has just failed.
Hey, Kenna.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've been noticing the last couple of weeks was how China has already been in talks with the Taliban for months.
Yep.
Right? So they showed up. They take over Bagram Air Base, which is, which is amazing to me. And what's so interesting is, listen to this. Everyone's heard of the Uyghurs, right? The Muslims that are over there in China, the ones that are in the concentration camps, essentially. Well,
I haven't heard anything about that yet.
so the Chinese have basically like a couple 100,000, maybe more, maybe in the millions of these Muslims called Uyghurs. All right. Now, what's happening is they're in slave labor camps, and they won't assimilate to Chinese culture. They won't assimilate to Chinese communist rule and all that stuff. They just won't do it. So what's happened is they're put in concentration camps and re-education camps in order for them to come to the Lord, if you will, and get right with God, all that stuff. Well, it isn't going to happen. These people are fervent believers, and they're just not going to change. Well, what's going to happen is, since they're a different kind of Islam than what the Taliban believes in, they're called unbelievers, essentially. And the minerals that we were supposed to mine, that China now has the contracts for, the $4 trillion, those mines are going to be run by these Uyghurs. And they'll be the ones toiling for free. And the Taliban will collect the check from China. The Chinese will inherit basically free minerals so they can continue to build silicon chips and mercury and everything else. And nobody's batting an eye. Nobody's saying a word. The administration hasn't said a word, and it's already happening. Like the Chinese army is going. And I'm saying to myself, back in the day when we witnessed the Soviets fighting the Afghans, we had a very famous congressman by the name of Charlie Wilson. And they made a movie about what he did, how he led an insurgency with Congress to equip the Afghan fighters, the Mujahideen, the Taliban, essentially, to shoot down Russian helicopters and basically disrupt them. He did it so well, the Russians eventually left. Now I ask myself, are we going to have another repeat of this? Are we going to start shooting down Chinese helicopters because we're arming the Northern Alliance? It's as if we cannot get out of this fight in any way, shape, or form. It's like we're stuck there for some reason. That's all.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, this was going on with Bush Senior. That was the first big reason we were there. And that's why Al-Qaeda became the thing that it was and everything. Like, I've been watching the 9/11 documentary that's on Netflix, and it's reminding me of a lot of the history lessons I did learn throughout school. But I mean, it's just nonsense. It really is. Like I am so infuriated for so many reasons, but for our veterans, I can't fathom what they're feeling right now. Just and there's no words, right? There's just no words at this point. But I want people to start kind of realizing what's kind of going on. Like, I mean, if there's a lot of parallels, right? Like that you can't make this shit up. I tried everything to see, like, okay, what are we doing different than Rome? What are we doing than this amazing superpower that songs are written about, and history was written about, and actually they there was a sinkhole or something that happened where it actually exposed some of ancient Rome underneath the cobble roads over there. So I thought that was really cool. But what happened in their society where it was just obliterated? And now I'm the further and further I got into this, I'm sitting here going, holy crap, like we're in the same situation. And nobody's talking about it. Everybody's just kind of aloof. We're fighting about whether somebody's vaccinated or not. We're fighting about who they voted for. We're fighting about who they won on The Bachelor. Like, this craziness, right? We need to start talking. We got to keep talking, guys, because that's how we get through this. And that's the brilliance between technology now. Like, we can talk to people all around the world. Like, we have people that are in Germany that sit in here. We have people in Australia that sit in here, and different, I mean, all around the world. And everyone is pretty much saying the same thing. Like, we are so effed, and the governing bodies aren't doing a thing. They're sitting and having parties. They're bickering about random pieces of a bill that have no pertinence to anything. So what is to come in the broad market aspect between, like I said, the everything bubble, the stock market, the housing, the, currency, the everything that's about to go bust.
Why did you pick Rome?
It just kind of piqued my interest for some reason. Like, I just kept seeing like
Is
this
that
thing.
like a biblical thing? Because the
No, it
Bible,
wasn't. It wasn't actually.
because it's like they always compare the United States of America to Rome in the Bible. Like all the mainstream evangelicals sometimes, will say stuff like that, and I'm like, I see a lot of coincidences. There's a lot of similar coincidences, but you mentioned earlier that you kind of peered into this. So I studied a little bit about Rome, and I looked at what happened through a period of what's called overexpansion, which is kind of one of the pitfalls of being Roman, and that why the empire fell. The Romans had water pipes which were made out of lead from the aqueducts, and a lot of people got sick and started to get ill, and nobody started doing anything. They were just kind of like, yeah, whatever. People die every day, and they knew it was the water, and they didn't do anything to change that. That and the barbarians, the Germanic tribes that were doing looting missions, political corruption, everything falls in line with what's happening in the United States, like dead on. Like you were spot on.
Oh, well, thank you. No, and it wasn't a biblical thing. Like, someone actually mentioned that to me about a week ago. I'm not gonna lie, guys. Like, I was raised Christian, but I haven't read the Bible in 15 years. I, 10 Commandments. That's basic. Be a decent human. Don't do stupid things, and just be kind to one another. Like, that's the basics, right? And no, it was not a biblical thing. It was literally just a fascination with Rome and like how powerful they were. And there was a theory that my husband had found or maybe thought of or something that, Rome never fully collapsed. It just got relocated, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I started with. Like, okay, that's what I started researching was it relocated? And then I just started diving into it. And I'm like, okay, this is really weird and too many parallels. Um, it, I don't know. It's just,
It's not a coincidence. Life. What I realize is humanity and reality works in life cycles. There are seasons, and a lot of times these seasons are repetitious. They are exactly the same. They're just taking up different forms. And when you look at the different ways Rome fell, you literally see the United States of America. But in terms of the market, what does that mean? What happened when Rome fell? We had stagnant. We didn't have like a dominant force after that. It was just kind of like this leveled out power vacuum in the ancient world. Nothing really happened. It wasn't until the rise of Islam, where the next superpower took over, and they ran for, I think, just as long, maybe longer than Rome, the Islamic Empire, going all the way to Spain from India. So there's going to be a dominant force, and if I'm not mistaken, it'll be a theologically driven one, because people are going to look for hope. They want hope. They want, what the church used to provide, but people just stopped going because they just everybody moved on. It was the age of humanism, secular humanism. So it's like nobody really wants to do it anymore. So I think the vacuum that's going to get filled is through religion. Whatever that next religion may be. It's always been the case that I've seen, but who knows?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I think looking back, like, okay, so I don't know if everybody follows like Nostradamus or anything like that. Like, you guys can totally call me crazy now. But I believe 2012 was actually the biggest turning point in our world.
Cosmic shift. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so, because we went from, oh gosh, now you guys are gonna kill me. The Pisces, we went into Aquarius, or vice versa. I'll get back to you on this one, but yes,
It's
we had to.
chaos.
It's
Yeah.
chaos, yeah, and because I remember 2012 just being a very terrible year. Like, it was a terrible year for us, and we're very small people, and because we were in college and things like that. Like, we weren't like actual humans yet. We were still figuring out our ass from a hole in the ground, and so to see the world fully, from 2012 to now. So that's a 9 years of just chaos. I really don't know. Like, we talk about the fourth turn in here. We've talked about that numerous times. And in theory, if we're going based off fourth turn, we have 7 years left of this crisis phase until we get to the next phase, right? So the next 7 years are going to be very interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of big shifts in different aspects of the world. Who knows? And go ahead, Al.
So I think there's going to be a diaspora. What do you think of that?
You think there's going to be a
Kenna?
what? I'm sorry.
A diaspora.
Can you reiterate what that word means?
Sure. A diaspora is when a large group of people collectively leave an area and they disperse, whether through war or famine or whatever. A good example is the Jews. Jews left Israel during the Roman conquest. They had the first diaspora where all the Jews, went to all four corners of the earth, Europe, Asia, wherever. That's a diaspora.
Okay.
What
Yeah.
if, and I'm just speculating here, what if we have something like that in America where we have all these different races and cultures. What if during the decline, the collective knowledge and stuff that we learned, we bring back to our nation of origin, and this country as a whole starts to, because what's going to happen is they're going to strip it for everything it's worth, right? Knowledge is going to be democratized, and excuse me, knowledge will be democratized. Artificial intelligence will rise, and there won't be a question of how do I do this. They're just going to start doing it because AI will show you how to do it. If that's the case, these individual nations will start having to compete with each other as nation states all over again, like we did in ancient times. Because at that time, it's like it's the need for food, right? It was always the need. It's very much the same now. Oceans are killing off the fish and stuff. All these things are happening.
But in the
People are trying.
U.S., I'm sorry to interject. I'm coming in hot for a second. The U.S., we're different because if you look at the bottom of the Statue of Liberty, there's a little poem by Emily Lazarus. The great Colossus. Man, we accept everybody here. And then what's going on with the rest of the world is they're not accepting everybody. So that's all I got to say. I'm sorry for coming in hot.
I agree. I completely agree. It's like, what if those that were accepted just finally say, it's not working out here either, and you got third or fourth generation, let's say the Irish, let's say fourth generation Irish, saying, what, maybe life is better back in, our ancestral homeland of Ireland. What if we just took all of our stuff and moved back? What would happen to all the Irish that are in the Americas? They would be mass migration back to Ireland.
I can't go back because I have to prove citizenship, like back to grandfathers and grandmothers, and I
Right.
can't.
But what I'm saying is, what if they construct the laws? We're talking in what are scenarios here. What if they have a right to return? What if you had a right to return? And these nations were starting to do that because what do we have in America that's better than everything else? We have an education system. We have infrastructure. We know how things are done. What if they desperately need that? And the diaspora, the people coming back, generational, the right to return, are the ones providing that.
I'm just gonna throw this one out there. What if it's to Mars? I mean, I'm just saying, we're
Yeah,
trying
it could
to,
be. Yeah.
think about that for a sec, because it might not even be, a migration from this, from country to country. I mean, they're trying to figure out a way how to live on another planet. Like, oh, hey, we fucked up this one. Let's go figure out life on a new one.
Yeah.
So,
We're not going to live that long to see that, though. You know what I'm saying? So
I don't know. These billionaires, they just keep flipping out money like it's nothing. So
I saw what happened today with the SpaceX guys. They sent 4 civilians up into space today.
that was cool. Inspiration.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
But
I mean,
what?
Inspiration
and
was
space, because space travel is going to get cheaper, and especially with companies like Meta with like graphene, and like if Tesla kind of partners up with
Here in
that, or
Detroit, we're starting up with aerial highways.
yeah. So I mean, yeah,
We were the first in the world to do Detroit highways in the world. Now we're doing them in the air, and we're starting to hear it's called Detroit Aerotropolis.
yeah. So
I've got one for you, Kenna. How about this? Jeff Bezos investing in that company that is doing genetic modifications to the aging gene.
Nope.
What if now, instead of you dying at 65, which was your genetic predisposition, or 70 or whatever, you start living much, much longer lives. And, we're still working, Harvard's still working on printing genetic organs, like taking your genetic
I remember
material
when
and
that started
growing
happening.
organs.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
it's like
I have a big
we're
problem
all
with that, actually. I really do.
Yeah.
like an ethical.
Not ethical, just
Population wise.
civilized.
So the reason I have a problem with, like life expectancies, every creature on this planet has a life expectancy. And if we start messing with that in a sense that, because like my family, my great grandmother lived to be like 96. My grandmother is 91 and still acts like she's 70. So I'm already disposed to live to probably be a century old. God help me.
Godspeed.
And so, to see our population not naturally dying off, we're already running out of space on this planet as is, right? And to see people living 200-300 years and having 7 generations easily being on the planet, there's not enough space. This planet is not big enough. Nor do we have the resources.
We've
Are we,
terraformed too
though?
much.
Are we really running out of space, though, or are we running out of resources?
No, we terraform too much.
See, I disagree. Yeah.
Terraforming is what's killing us.
Well, and I mean resources too, definitely. Food. Like this is something I tell everyone. With any kind of impending thing going on with the economy, on a downshift, the three basics: shelter, food, and water, right? So I say buy land so you can grow your own food and raise your own livestock and whatnot, so that you can actually provide for yourself, being self-reliant. So yeah, no, if resources are they're already scarce. I mean, look at COVID. COVID was like a year and a half of shutdowns and inability to produce any kinds of goods. And so as we sit right now, we don't have the resources. There's millions of people that are dying every day because they have no food, and that's in all countries all around the world.
So, are you suggesting that we should try to, spend money and research and try to get off the planet, colonize?
No.
Actually, it's funny. It's funny that you say that. So,
We should spend money in research trying to get this planet back to what it should be.
well, that and my husband and I had a very intriguing conversation probably about a year or two ago, of creating. We put all kinds of stuff in orbit, right? We do all kinds of things like that.
Yeah, we need a
But
Roomba up there too, a
if
space Roomba or two.
we do, to clean up all the
All that junk
satellites.
that shit. Oh, dude. Space Roombas, can you see them?
But if you could actually figure out a way to do greenhouses up that way, up in space, attaching them to the International Space Station or something where we can actually further our ability to grow more, right? Like my idea
Yeah.
here, my idea down here is, if all these companies have figured out recently that they don't need the overhead cost of these huge skyscrapers, right? And so we
There was a
have.
movie back in the 70s called Silent Running. It's exactly what you're talking about.
Well, yeah, so I haven't seen that, but yeah, I had the idea that, turning these big skyscrapers into vertical greenhouses, I mean, you can plant everything in a building, in a controlled environment. So, if there is a drought year, you can still water, you can collect rainwater, you can use hydroponics or whatever, any which way you can get water into these facilities. Um, and you control it. That means that bugs aren't going to be a factor. You don't have to worry about them getting eaten alive by some kind of insect or whatever.
Aliens.
Huh?
Aliens.
Aliens, yes.
I just Sigourney Weaver just flashed through my head.
Oh, but yeah, so that's kind of one of my goals. That's one of my pet projects that I do want to try to do after MOAS or whatever is, I want to try to get one of these big skyscrapers that aren't really being utilized, buy it up and turn it into a massive greenhouse. I mean, it's
Sweet. Yeah. What's the difference? When you get up in that altitude, though, the difference in chemicals in the air are different too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, and that's
Like
the thing.
hydrogen, it's richer in this and that. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you could literally control every piece of it. I'm not saying GMO. I'm not saying don't, I mean, there's some GMOs, like our corn that we eat is actually GMO. Bananas that we eat now are GMOs. But we don't have to do it that way. But it would just be a way to make sure that there's enough resources for everybody to survive. You could actually raise chickens. You could raise all kinds of livestock in these kinds of facilities.
tax the rich.
Oh, Jesus, no, let's not start that.
I won't.
Don't get me started on that.
Oh, please don't.
But
Sorry,
no,
I didn't say it out loud, did I?
you did, but no, it's cool. I don't know. Like I'm very fascinated because I feel like being economically around the world, I think that's going to improve innovation. We're going to figure out ways to better the planet, and save resources and provide more for others. Because you figure, okay, so like my example, a skyscraper greenhouse, right? That's jobs, that's stability, and if somebody's down on their luck, like if people that aren't aware of what's going on, people like that were in 2008 that didn't see it coming, you can say, hey, why don't you come get something? I have all this, you can, like a food pantry, essentially a fresh grown food pantry. Come on, how freaking wicked is that?
We
So
were on that back then. We had Farmer Jack's, remember?
no.
Oh my God.
No, I don't. I don't.
You don't remember Farmer Jack?
I do not. I'm sorry.
It was before Walgreens and Walmart and all the rest of it. Just the old country stores, before everything went big box, you know.
I'm sorry. I was a city girl. I was
I
definitely a little
was
city girl.
Do you, Kenna? Do you feel
Detroit.
like do you feel like humanity is going to devolve?
Oh, we're still evolving. Come on.
No,
Oh yeah.
devolve.
I think we're just in a shift. I
Like,
think we're in a weird spiritual shift.
it's
I don't.
interesting. What is that a deliberate thing? You know, it's like you said, a spiritual shift.
I mean, that's just how. I mean, I'm a spirit. So, like I said, like I was raised Christian, right? And I went more of a spiritual realm whenever I, became older and kind of started looking at. Like, I studied religion throughout college. I took many classes to studying, Buddhism and Catholicism and all these other religions. And so I just became more spiritually aware, and you can kind of just see the lostness within the society.
Yeah.
So I don't. There's a lot of
Life
feedback from
finds
you,
a
Al.
way.
Sorry.
Life
But
life will find a way, no
mhm.
matter.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna devolve. Like I don't. I think everyone's just very lost because you figure. Okay, think of it this way: like pretty much almost everyone that is. Um, sorry, Al. There's just so much feedback coming from you. Um, People that are in a lot of this with the market and studying what's going on and finally kind of I hate saying this, but like waking up, they kind of got red pilled. Like the media's lying, especially with the meme stocks, right? Like a lot of people didn't pay attention to what CNN and NBC, MSNBC, and what all these people were saying until it became this thing with the meme stocks.
That
And
was cool though the other day when they put the red pill and the blue pill.
yeah,
That was for
yeah.
Adam Aaron when he did the for the new Matrix coming out. I took the red pill.
Oh yeah. So I mean, it's definitely an interesting time because people are no longer trusting what is being said in the news.
Right.
And so I think people are just a little bit lost and they're finding their way, and that's fine, and that's evolution. That is evolutionary, because people are beginning to think for themselves and look for themselves and research, and I think that's probably the best thing that could happen with a lot of this. Really, is just people learning to be self-reliant, research, and kind of teach everybody what they're finding.
So I come from a very similar background in terms of theological. I came from, a Christian household, and I did that for a while, and I'm still very much in the faith. The one thing that Christendom, Judeo-Christian values have given us are really the 4 or 5 fulcrum points of existence. You got, like origin, meaning, morality, and ultimate destiny.
Simple machines of technology, yeah.
It's like who made you, what laws govern you, what's your focus, what's your purpose in life, where are you going to go when you die, you know like what is the meaning of your life, like what does it all mean at the end of the day. And I think when that framework, Judeo-Christian framework, now it's being shifted into something else, the one thing that faith gives people is hope. And when you go with the secular humanism, you're embracing nihilism, which is like, this is all meaningless. When you say that, right, and you say that your life doesn't have a purpose, you're just this evolutionary blip on this cosmic window, or this cosmic life cycle, that I think inherently gives man a freedom to mourn himself, and that leads to depression, that leads to all the bad stuff, because like when you have no more meaning, no more morality, everything is subjective, including laws and rules, and what governs people. That's the one thing that it did give us, governance. And I think
Damn, that's deep, dude.
I think it's like Hitchens, Christopher Hitchens once said, when everything started to get all like secularized and
Do
people
you
started
believe in
getting.
like Dante too? The
No,
seven
no,
layers of a
no. So when Hitchens said, like right before he died, it was better when we had the crazy Christian right that was in charge, because at least then the people, whilst they were suffering in certain ways, in their fundamental aspects of their happiness, they were relatively safe and they were secure. So when I see all this stuff happening, I see this, and it's that's why I asked you, like, why did you call it a spiritual shift? I very much see the same thing. I see this secularism seeping in on every aspect, this wokeism, the all these little facets are all pulling people away, and they're in the state of transitory, I don't know how you can even categorize this, but everything's being shifted into something else, and that something else is not pleasant. It's dark, it's murky, and it's really really caustic. And I'm like, there's days where it's like I look outside and I see the
This
news.
is
I
a very
see
nice story. Is it like a long story?
what's that?
It's a very nice story. I was just wondering if it's a long story.
What do you mean?
Oh, yeah, I was just listening to you drone on about theology, and I was just
I can
wondering,
stop
like,
speaking.
there's AMC stock we could talk about. And
Oh,
I can stop
I mean,
speaking.
so KT actually just came up here, but I could listen to you talk about theology all night because yep. KT, what's going on?
Hi guys, how are you?
Doing well. How are you tonight?
Good. Good. So I just, in regards to the question of is society devolving or evolving, and the I think there's a lot of people that could take that to any theological aspect, but just from like a biology aspect and a social aspect of things, I think it's good for people to keep in mind that a lot of times we don't talk about the fact that evolution is not painless, right? Like there are growing pains in evolving the same way that there are growing pains in maturing in life. And there's truth to the fact that we've pulled away from a lot of traditional values, whether it be American traditional values or Christian traditional values or indigenous values. And I think a lot of that is due to um, you know maybe extremism or losing those foundations. But I think this group and the togetherness that you see on Reddit and AMC and other platforms, it really shows that in the most confusing of times, people are still willing to work together to uncover the truth and to uncover a better way, and a more fair and truthful way. And we maybe shouldn't lose sight of that so quickly.
I really appreciate you sharing that. I think that's important, and you use some interesting language. I almost look at it like it's birth pangs, like you're giving birth to something, and we don't know what that thing is. But the fact that you have all these people from like 30 different countries, all sharing this one common goal to have generational wealth and being able to, for the most part, get along. You don't really see that very much, and there isn't as if there's a leadership thing here. Do you know what I mean? There's just that one common goal, which is money. And as disgusting as that sounds, but it's true.
But I would argue that the common goal is not money. I mean, I know there's a lot of focus on generational wealth and on how much money there is to be made, but from my probably overly optimistic stance on things, when I hear people talk about that, what I think it means is that people are searching for freedom from an oppressive system, or freedom from not having choice and control in their life. And no matter what the end value of these stocks is, a lot of people have already found some moniker of that just from being in these communities. And to me, that's the most hopeful thing that you can achieve, right? Is losing this sense of self for a greater sense of togetherness.
It's overly optimistic, and I'll give you that. But I appreciate your perspective on the matter. I just feel as if like it's so just it's so fleeting. You know, what happens after the squeeze, after all the transfer wealth or whatever happens. I mean, it's not as if we can, you know, continue on. I mean, do you stick around? Do you go to the next play? Do you go to the next thing? Do you just keep doing this until, you know, you bankrupt the entire system and then we hold all the money and start to distribute it? How does that work? You know?
I don't think anybody has an answer for that, but I think, people like Kenna who want to buy something and repurpose it, and use it for the better good of whether that's, greenhouses or mutual aid or just feeding your own family. I mean, there's a lot of talk about just simply being able to help people the way that you wish that you had help, and a lot of us didn't, and now we'll have the opportunity. And I get that that's super optimistic, but if you can't have faith in the good of humans despite some bad actors and some bad apples, then what are we left with?
No, Katie, I agree. And I think that's, I guess I share your blind optimistic, I guess we can call it. Because there is still good people in the world. And I know money corrupts people. Money does a lot of shitty things. And some people won't know that until they have it. Like that's the scary thing for me, because humans are very notorious for greed. And I mean, and we see that, right, with, you know, I'm gonna get so much hate for this now. So like the whole like F the hedgies, and I don't trust anyone that works for a hedge fund. So like my example for this is the secretary. And the person so off the wall from what's going on. Like she's literally there to answer a phone and doesn't even touch the trading computer. Like she's there to get paid, go home, feed her family, period. Like, right, that's what she's there for. And so it's, when we say F the hedgies and the hedge funds in general, um, there are going to be innocent people that are hurt in this. And yes, they can go get another job or whatever. Yes, I get that. But at the same time, these hedge funds are not going to be hiring. Like this is the thing, because if they're all going under, then they're definitely not going to be hiring. So yeah, the secretaries they'll have to go into different fields or whatever. But again, you're having a lot of people that are still trying to get jobs as we sit right now. So there's just a lot of there's already a little bit of nastiness that's going on with this. But no, I do see all the good. I do see the good. And so that's where, with the fourth turn, the millennials are classified as the heroes and the hero generation. Take that with what you will. But I think, given how we've grown up, right? I'm 31, so I'm like right in the thick of millennial generation. Given how we grew up, like we remember the good times, but our life has been really, really kind of downhill since 2001, right? When 9/11 happened. It's just been a cascading domino effect of just bullshit. And so we want a better world. Like, I think that's what saves a lot of this. My optimism for a lot of what's going on is the people that I hear from that are in the meme stocks are, there's millennials, there's Gen X, there's boomers, and a lot of these people were hurt in 08 and 10 and 12. They were hurt, and they don't want people to suffer. That's the best thing that comes from this, is that is me hearing that nobody wants anybody else to suffer anymore. The suffering is done. And so no, I'm right there with you, Katie. I think there will be a lot of good, and I think maybe that is, that transition period, the spiritual change and everything, because we no longer would be narcissists. We wouldn't be, hopeless and just depressed and everything, because you're going to have people just lighting the world up with, okay, hey, this village in Africa needs food or fresh water, clean water. You have these people down in, Venezuela or out in, I don't know, Guam, where their houses fall apart every time a hurricane comes over, typhoon, whatever it is over there. There's a lot of good that can come, but I think the fall will happen first. And I think, and that's where I say, like, you know, if we have a crash, a market crash, a economic crash, it won't be long, because you figure AMC, GME, Nokia, these meme stocks are the inverse to the economy, right? So, and all these people that are in it, and these people are not all just in the United States, they're all over the world. We get to make an impact. And it's like, think of, this is cheesy. This is very cheesy. But the song Millionaire, I Want to Be a Millionaire, right? Talks about like how he would do more than FEMA did, right? That's all of us. Like, we'd all be like a hurricane hits, a natural disaster hits, fires break out. I guarantee there'd be so many apes over there going, let us help you rebuild. Let us get this place restarted. You know, just whatever you need. People sending out rescues. I do believe that would be a thing.
I think you get a certain amount of participation, and I think some people would genuinely do it out of the goodness of their hearts. Is there going to be large flocks of people? I don't have that level of faith in humanity for that. I think if you glamorize it in some way, there's maybe some incentive, as in social, some kind of social point system. Maybe, yeah, you could probably pull it off. But I feel as if as the older I get, I believe in those Calvinistic doctrines of depravity, or it's just like the inherent good in man is null and void. But I'm more of a cynic, so don't mind me. But
No
I will
worries.
say this much, Ken. I will say this much, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but um, what I've seen with the government is their biggest fucking problem is supply chain. Like, that's their biggest fucking problem, man. They can do all kinds of cool stuff, but they can't do supply chain correctly. Like, their consolidation of resources strategically is awful. It's horrible and awful. They just, if like another Katrina happens, yeah, they allocate resources? Yeah, they could. How long will it take? Days, weeks. There's no centralized like supply chain management in this country, and that's what kills people.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's it is not a good system at all. That's all I can really say. No, they don't know how to allocate sources. They don't know how to help those in need when they get hit the hardest. You know, Michael, where I used to call home up in the Panhandle. Michael wiped it out while we were stationed in Hawaii. We watched from the TV in Hawaii as what we knew, what we'd had hoped to bring our daughter home to. It was gone, and it took. I mean, they're still rebuilding. Let's face it. Like, that whole area is still just a mess. And I mean, they didn't have power. They didn't have anything for weeks. And this isn't like, I mean, it's just like New Orleans. Like, it's insane. But I believe that we can, as a society, we can fix that. Like, you'd have resources down there faster than anything. I mean, I think that's what peeves me off right now, is that, you know, there are people out there that can help, and they just don't. They don't do it, and I can't, in my mind, because I guess maybe I just have this little heart of gold or something, but I am one of those people that if I can help, I want to help. Whether it's, you know, physical labor or something, if I can help, I want to help. And to see that people don't do that, that have the ability, it's just boggling, because, you know, you get one life on this planet, and to me, I want to make a difference. I want to make the world better, and I'm going to do it one way or another. So, and like right now, this is how I make the world better. I keep talking. I just keep talking and getting information out to people. I keep trying to get the word out. And if I can save someone from the economic crash that might be happening, because I remember back in February, I was talking about this. I was sitting here going, guys, there's something big happening with the housing market and the crypto market. And, you know, the meme stocks are tied to it somehow, and I haven't figured it out yet. And I'm sitting here like Chicken Little, like, crypto is going to crash, and then eventually it does crash within a couple months. And the housing market, you know, the houses are going up, and they're selling for 30-40% over ask, and also the craziness. And, you know, oh, no, it's not going to be bad. Well, it's going to be bad. So if I can save one person from the hurt that my family felt during '08, and, you know, many families that I've heard now from '08, I feel like I did something. I helped. Because the way to a person, there's a saying that you are the happiest when you are in service to others. That is a quote that I live by. And so whether that's, helping my husband, taking care of our daughter, getting her to talk or whatever, she's 2, helping her learn how to do something, or, doing my DD, hosting the podcast, looking up something if someone doesn't understand something. Happiest when you're in service to others, is something that I live by. So call it, like I said, blind optimism. But I think if there's at least me, there's others like me, like Katie, and I know Citadel Air has his ongoing flights to wherever everyone wants to go in the world after MOAS. If you need a vacation from all the craziness, we're all here to do good. I don't know. I'll stop rambling. Citadel Air, do you have something that you want to add with all of this? Anything at all?
Negative. I'm just taking it all in.
Okay, sounds good. Katie, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Not really. I would encourage everybody, whether it's right now or after MOAS, but preferably the sooner the better, that this community that we have built online is the same community that you can build right outside your doorstep, with a little bit of work and just connecting with your neighbors. And
Some of us aren't. Some of us aren't able to get out of our.
I mean, there are things,
I'm like semi-ambulatory, so it's
but there are things that all of us can do, no matter how far outside our own door we can go. And if your only means is online, then you're already doing what you can. But what we have built here is not a one-off sort of thing. It's we're all capable of doing small great things, exactly where we are, but before anything miraculous happens to us, I guess is.
I just want AMC to. That's gonna be miraculous when AMC pops. Well, that's gonna be miraculous to me. Been holding for 9 months now, almost.
Yep, it will be a definite good day. For a lot of people, I really do believe that. But no, I will call it a night, guys. Tomorrow we will do probably broad market, maybe GME. I haven't decided yet. I know there's going to be some AMC spaces held tonight throughout the Twitter space. So if you guys want to go join that, 100%. They've been doing some great things in there. But yeah, if you guys just want to let me know, either DM me or I can put a poll up or something if you guys want broad market or GME. And I'm seeing Johnny call me out right now. Girl likes to talk. Shut up, Johnny. That's kind of the whole thing about being a podcast. You kind of have to like to talk. I've been watching you guys. Don't worry. But yeah, broad market or GME is going to be up for grabs tomorrow. So I will post that out. Anybody have final thoughts for tonight?
I had fun. Thanks for allowing me to speak.
Of course, I look forward to more theology talk from you because I was a dual English and psych major, so theology is all about me.
All right. Sounds good.
Thanks for coming up.
Cheers.
All right, guys. Good night. I'll see you guys tomorrow.